Okay. Yeah, like fastballs. Oh, part. I don't know how. Oh, all right. How about that? That should work. Yeah. Thumbs up. Good God. Okay. I should probably just start over. Okay. We're gonna start over. I'm gonna give the cliff notes of what I just went over because I don't know if any of it got picked up. Essentially, people are wondering what I think of Kevin Gausman because I tweeted dear God, no, don't sign him. And that isn't because of him, the pitcher. I actually quite like him as a pitcher, but um, there aren't very many good places to get good projections for free agency. These are, pretty rough estimates, but like if it's 3 years, 18 million, I would give him that, and it's also not my money, but that's super doable. That's $54 million. By then, he's probably not the pitcher that he is right now. The Mariners will have theoretically, um, they would have George Kirby up and other pitchers. So that's fine. 4 years at 22 million, that's different. And again, like made up constraints. These are teams want you to believe that there's a cap when there's really not, aside from the luxury tax. But we know that the Mariners are going to operate with these I don't know what the verbiage is, but their own constraints. So, do I like Gausman? As of right now, it depends, but I'm going to look into him a little bit more. As I noted, why don't we do this by season, just so it's easier. Oh, there it goes. He lost spin this year, like everyone else did. Let's see, his splitter on average lost about 100. His fastball is actually about the same. He lost a little bit, but insignificant. So you can see it the most with his splitty. For a couple months, he was down 1350, 1400, which is a couple hundred down, which is significant. Also lost on his fastball, got it back. How that affected his movement. Let's see. I don't know if that's the same month, but well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would have to look at the date ranges, and we can maybe look at like CSW. But I don't know how much I like Kevin Gausman. I'm starting to like, you really have to look at him at the pitcher that he's been, and then you have to look at what happened to him when he lost spin. So I ought to do that first. Let me do that one more time. Game, and then 2021. There we go. So like, he really always had his fastball the whole year, which is a little strange. I don't know why that happened, but we can look at this in three stages. I think we can look at it from April 1st to June 23rd, and then June 29th to August 27th, and then September 1st to October 2nd. And I think the easiest way to do this is to just go into here. Sorry to Alex Chamberlain, but his leaderboard's a little too slow, and it dies if you're not clicking on it. So let's go April 1st, June 23rd. June 23rd. Splitty was really good. Like a 35% strike percentage on a splitter is pretty crazy. June 29th to August 27th. I have a feeling this is going to be very bad. Did I say June 9th? I hope so. August 29th. 28%. I think that's still pretty good for a splitter. It's just not Kevin Gausman. Yeah. Oh, June 29th. Oh, okay. It's probably even worse then. Oh, I did July. Maybe not. Okay, 28%. Yeah, it's still pretty bad. But And then August or September 1st, which is nice and easy. Wow, that's not right. Let's do this. Yeah, okay. So, Splitter's back. It's not back to why did I mess this up? It's not back to 35%, but 35% is pretty surreal. So yeah, I mean, you have to figure, especially because MLB is um they're trialing those pre-tacked balls. You have to figure that his spin will, be around here, not here, when he was trying to figure out how to apply stuff probably to the ball. So, that is good. The next thing that we can do, um, this is such a strong resource. See, that's the annoying thing. It reloads if you're not active on it enough. Um, and there's actually a way I found out to share leaderboards, which is pretty rad. I did not know that you could do that until like last week. So we can look at Gausman's 2021. And what I'm interested in is a lot of it's like this. Like, I wish Alex's adjusted vertical approach angle was a little more accurate, like a zone adjusted vertical approach angle. And I like this article. I should explain what that is before I get into it. But this is one of the first things that I'll look at whenever I look at a pitcher, because I'm trying to think of an example. A good example is like Chris Flexen. So he has one of the worst vertical approach angles, zone adjusted vertical approach angles of all starters. But if you look at his fastball ride, it looks quite good. Let's see. Like almost 10 is pretty good. And that's the reason why I'm kind of moving away from like induced crap. What's it stand for? IVB. Induced vertical break and like vertical movement on fastballs, because it isn't that instructive. It depends on like what your arm slot is and a lot of factors. So Chris Flexen's fastball looks really good. When you look at his horizontal movement, you can see he throws a really, really, really straight fastball, and that's because he throws so over the top. So Chris Flexen looks really good, but he's not by vertical approach angle. And so vertical approach angle is if you think about the angle in which the ball enters the zone, really good fastballs enter flat, which makes them really hard to barrel up. And these are the type of fastballs where hitters will swear that they'll swear like oh, those physics nerds don't know what they're talking about. That ball is rising, and it is rising if you're not accounting for gravity. But if you are, every ball, unless you throw 90 miles per hour from submarine, every ball is actually falling somewhat. So I don't actually know why I pulled up this article, because I can just explain it. But that's really important to consider. And Gausman, by vertical approach angle, doesn't have a good fastball, which is interesting because when you look at his strike percentage, it's pretty good. So let's see. Let's do this. there's kind of multiple ways to do this, but one way you can look at, to see how his fastball plays, where's he locating it? I like to go in, the zone profile. This is pretty typical. You might I think a lot of analysts will hop in and be like, oh, well, this guy throws his fastball over the middle a lot, blah blah blah. But it's a middle. Like, if you miss, that's where it could end up, like, the most, depending on where you are. So, like, his fastball isn't. I don't know. This is actually kind of weird. It plays really, really well above the zone. This is pretty good for, the vertical middle of the zone, and then up here it's not that great. Like 14% swinging strike rate and 13% is good, but it's not good for the top of the zone. So that kind of leads me to believe that Chamberlain's tableau is somewhat correct, and that his vertical approach angle is decent. One of the things that informs vertical approach angle is there's a lot of different factors, but one of them is vertical pitch location or height. And Gausman doesn't elevate that much. So maybe the Mariners say, hey, or any team, elevate your fastball. And actually, see, things are just coming up. This is a good opportunity to show how to do one of these queries. So we're going to look at his fastball. I only want to look at starting pitchers. I only want to look at fastballs in the shadow zone at the top of the zone. So that's 11, 12, and 13. And then I have to change my denominator to only include fastballs, only pitches in those zones, and only starters. And then I want to look at his CSW up there. So called strikes plus swings and misses, which will include these four. And then, I don't know, 100 pitches minimum. So we'll see how good his stuff plays by kind of strike percentage. It's really called strikes plus whiffs, but let's see. Yeah, Gausman has a better fastball than I thought. So 15 out of 96, that's not 16. That means he ranks in like the, I don't know, 85th-ish percentile in CSW at the top of the zone. That's really good. Let's see. Alexander Chase says, I'm on mobile and I miss a raw number. When you say it's never good, do you mean that it's too flat, too steep, or too middling? Did you mean for his fastball and when I was looking at the whiff rate? So then the next thing I would probably do is say, okay, his fastball's really good at the top of the zone. How much does he actually locate there? So I want to remove, let's see what I want to do. I want to remove, let me think. This is a lot. This is a lot to think about. I was basically saying that Chase, his vertical approach angle, like 5.2, that is like really not good. You want to at least be in the fours, but if he were to elevate his fastball more, it would probably be more in the low fours. But unfortunately, Chamberlain's tableau, that like it's not very reliable. Sorry, Alex. Okay, let's see. I want to see how much he elevates his fastball there. So I'm going to remove this out of the denominator. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then we're going to see how many of his fastballs, because we're looking only at fastballs and I removed attack zones, how many ended up in those 3 zones, and I guarantee you he'll end up in like the 30th percentile. It's kind of a guess, but okay, 144 out of 227. That's actually did I nail that? Hold up, I gotta Google, or not Google, calculate. 227 minus 144. Yeah, I did nail it. 37th percentile. So only 4.5% of his fastballs end up in that area, and it's where his fastball plays the best. I think I think I'm talking myself into Kevin Gausman as we go. Let's look at his splitter now. So that's like really good. Like really good. So he gets a lot of swings on his splitty outside of the zone. Like 65%. So in other words, a swing rate on this area, that's his O swing. I kind of learned this from Nick Pollock, and it's more variable than he and I once thought, but 40% is like pretty good for a lot of pitches. So 65% is really, really good, but to be able to convert 37 to 38% of these pitches into whiffs, that's like, that itself is a good CSW. But a couple of these, like ones that are painted down here, are probably going to get called for strikes too. So he still scares me. And I guess that's the thing that I should be looking at is like, what does it look like for Kevin Gausman to go game by game? Because also, Chase, did I answer your question? I think I did. Because at least anecdotally, he lost his splitter, and you can kind of see like, let's see, July 24th. I don't know when he lost spin, but that's not encouraging. Yeah, so that's not the game he did. Yeah, there's a stretch of games where he wasn't throwing it as much, and that's the scary part with Kevin Gausman is he's a good pitcher, and I like him, but he has basically 2 pitches. Like, he has a 4-seam fastball that he throws 50% of the time, and then a split he throws 35% of the time. Like, he really doesn't throw a changeup or slider. And I don't know if this is misclassification. Let me check. I don't think it is, because his splitter shifts down on the way to the plate. Anyways, Gausman. Yeah, maybe let's I just want to check real quick, see if people are hounding me for saying I don't want Gausman. I guess I have to write a Gausman article. So, okay. I just want to finish up with Gausman and like continue to show at all 3 different sites like what I would be looking at. Yeah. I'm very scatterbrained, but so yeah, a lot of the time I like to visually come in and see like, okay, he's throwing most of his splitters below the plate in the middle, and this is where the best results are. And then you can also toy around with like batted ball stuff, and see like, where does his splitter get lit up, which is probably like, yeah, when he leaves it up. So if he leaves it in the lower middle of the plate, which for most pitches is a thing, like for whatever pitch, it's gonna get smacked. Whereas down here, like it probably doesn't get, yeah, like a batting average that low. And yeah, John says that the Giants basically told him not to mess with the third pitch, which kind of makes some sense. If if you can reliably, I wish I could code so I could look this up, but if you can reliably throw a fastball for strikes and a splitter for strikes over 30% of the time, there's not really any reason to to tinker with the third pitch, especially because like his slider's not, it's not the best. It's fine. I mean, it's a good, like, it's funny because I think it's a decent pitch, but he uses it like a get me over, which some pitchers do. Some pitchers use good pitches like get me overs. I lost my train of thought. Oh, I wanted to see what his pitch percentage is based on handedness, because I bet he throws a lot of splitters to right-handers. I bet he backfoots them, which is hard, but when you have a splitter like him. Okay, 35% on the whole. Yeah, against righties 33, and against lefties probably 38. Yeah, 37 and a half. So like in terms of pitch mix, he's pretty much the same pitcher against both handedness, except against righties he throws more sliders because they break away. So yeah, that's all what I would be looking at is, and this is going to refresh and go away in a second, I bet. But is his vertical approach angle good? Sort of, it is. It, as he uses it, is not great, but if he were to elevate it more, it would be really good. I mean, you can use vertical approach angle and horizontal approach angle for other pitches, but it's just like my favorite reference isn't as good, and it's just not as helpful, but it can be. So, oh, it didn't refresh. That's lovely. Yeah, you can see CSW here, and you can see that like his slider goes for strikes more than any of his other pitches. And then you can do cool stuff like change the denominator so it's only pitches out of the zone, and then look at that does not seem right. It could be, actually. I don't know, y'all. Do we think he has a 19% chase percentage on his slider? Because if so, his slider kind of sucks. We're about to find out. Yeah, it does. That's really bad. So there's a reason why he uses it like a get me over pitch. Because it's not that great, and the Giants told him not to throw anything else. But yeah, so that's what I'd be looking at. If you want to see, how, and I keep using the term get me over pitch. What that means is that like pitchers basically use them as a means to steal strikes, but if you use them too much, then they start getting hit. So if like Gausman's slider performs really well, but if you were to throw it more, it would get touched up. So like my favorite example is Dylan Bundy throws a really loopy curveball, like, I don't know, 5% of the time, but his CSW is like 46% on it because it has a hump, so it looks like a fastball that's going to trail off above the zone, and then it just drops in the zone and hitters take it. So one way that you kind of tell if a pitch is a get me over pitch is pitch shape, but I don't expect a lot of people to be able to do that. Is by looking at ball percentage, because it basically just means like, well, I guess swing percentage too, but it basically just means that um, hitters, if the strike percentage and ball percentage are both high, it means they're not being put into play. So a proxy for that is ball and play percentage. 9% is really, really low. So unless you have an incredible pitch, this kind of hints at pitch being a get me over pitch. Or 13% is pretty low as well. That is because he doesn't throw it in the zone a lot because it's a splitter. So yeah, those are a couple things. I don't know how many of these need explaining. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these I don't use. Like first strike percentage, like why? Whiffs per swing is the same thing that Baseball Savant uses here. So let's see, 46% and 46%. Yeah, so it's the same thing that's on Savant. So that's that. And then I think a lot of people get into trouble looking at batted ball stuff because so many different metrics take so insanely long to become more reliable or credible. I don't want to use the word stabilize because Tom Tango might kill me in my sleep, but like, I bet I could find like stabilization point. It's literally going to be like something insane. I don't remember. And I know that people don't care about this, but so BABIP, for like, people cite BABIP all the time. For it to become reliable, credible, stable, it requires 820 balls in play. So that's on offense. For pitching, 2,000. 2,000. That's crazy. Um, I don't even know if Gausman has given up that many. Well, no, he probably has. But like, that takes years. So this is like really, like, a lot of my analysis comes at the pitch level. That's where a lot of analysis should come if you're being, if you're not being disingenuous. But you run into issues because like 150 batted ball events is probably, that probably tells you a lot about a lot of different statistics, but also like not as much about others. So let's see, who was I just looking at? Oh, I was looking at, who did I write about this morning? John Means. What do you mean no? What do you, I Means. Oh, okay. Means John. Like, I was looking at his stuff earlier today, and it's kind of hard to read into, because it changes so much. But like, a couple red flags for John Means are blast percentage, which essentially just means a really, really hard hit and far home run or something like that. What percentage of home runs are blasts? A lot of them are for Means, which means that sometimes his fastball and his changeup get rocked. As follows: he had, at least this year, a really bad barrel percentage on his fastball and a not good one for a changeup. So some of these things are helpful, but like, I would not use dynamic hard hit percentage for pitchers. Hard hit percentage in general just isn't that helpful. Dynamic is for hitters. And then like even over here, Chamberlain, his categorization for different pitches uh is kind of weird. Like I think I don't really know what pop like I don't know what that is. That's not like the pop up percentage that I use. So something that is a little, you can use in better faith is uh, are these numbers weighted on base average on contact, expected weighted on base average on contact. It's a good, and I say that with an asterisk, it's a good way to find regression candidates because let me pull up Alex Chamberlain. Uh, Alex Chamberlain kind of championed this idea, and that is that between years there is variability between. Oh dang it! It's not even this article. There is variability between expected. It's such a convoluted thing, but expected weighted on base average on contact 1 year and then the next year, and then there's also a disparity in the same year with Wobakin and ex Wobakin, to where if a player has a really really low ex Wobakin, like okay, just pretend that John Means fastball said 307. A lot of people might say, "Oh, John Means broke out because he has a 2.50 ERA and didn't give up any home runs." That alone, you can kind of say, well, it's pretty likely that it's going to regress towards league average, which for a fastball is probably around 403. Yeah, so 399. So it's a really cheap way of seeing if guys like Zach Wheeler did it. Sonny Gray has done it, but like some of these guys also have inherent things in their pitching profiles where they do legitimately limit hard contact. Sonny Gray is one because he's a seam shifted wake darling, and if you want to learn more about that, you can watch my last stream. It's on YouTube. But it basically just means that the way that his pitches spin on the way to the plate, it'll be spinning like this, and then it'll shift this way, which I think when people talk about late movement, that's kind of what they're talking about is seam shifted wake. It's moving this way, it's moving this way, it's moving this way, and then it kind of falls off the table. So yeah, I don't know. It's such a convoluted thing that I actually think when I post this on YouTube, I'll link below like Chamberlain's articles. But I wanna show. I have a list of articles that I really like, that I refer to somewhat often, and maybe the Zach Wheeler piece isn't there. Here it is. I think he uses Zach Wheeler as an example, but he's not in the title. So let's see. Here we go. So, 2018, his slider or his four seamer was below average via Exo Bacon relative to the league. His slider was well below average. His two seamer was crazy below average. Like that is not sustainable. His splitter was above average. Well, worse, but in terms of how much he overperformed. And then the curveball, I don't think really matters because he doesn't throw it a lot. The next year, so this is the year that Zach Wheeler broke out. And I use air quotes because part of it was real and part of it wasn't. Um, he didn't have the whiffs that he has nowadays back then. So basically, he overperformed this year, and then the next year he turned around and added 30 points to his four seamer Expo Bacon, added 120 to his slider, 150 to his two seamer, and then shaved 60 off of his splitter. So these numbers are, and this is why you can't really read into a lot of these stats too much, because these numbers are subject to a lot of different factors that aren't under the pitcher's control, like just statistical. This is essentially just statistical variation. So even guys who are legitimately good at, like Wheeler is legitimately good at limiting hard contact and creating pitcher friendly contact. Even these guys will have bad years. And so you can look at like Gausman for the most part is below average when it comes to let's see. When it comes to batted ball contact, whereas Wheeler is about as good as Gausman is bad. Like 320. So this is his breakout year, 322. That's 40 points below league average, and that doesn't seem sustainable. But then he did it again in 2020 and 2021. So it seems like 2019 was just kind of a like 365 is pretty much league average, but it turns out that league average for Zach Wheeler is kind of an aberration. So yeah, I really got off course here. But so yeah, that is another thing that I look at here. It's super helpful to go in and poke around and look at, wow, it didn't refresh, pitches at the pitch level. And then you can also just group by player and see, like, you know, on the whole, what do they look like? And like Gausman is a better pitcher than John Means. That's not a surprise to anyone. Let's see. So I pulled this up. I feel like these are so complex I really need to do a better job of doing more simple concepts for people who don't understand this stuff. But I think, why don't we possibly end with just looking at pitch type splits, because they're really important. Like I said, looking at things at the pitch level is, I think, where a lot of analysis should be moving towards. So you can go to a player page, go to splits, and then go down to pitch info and click on it, and then click all. That'll bring up their pitch type splits. I just scroll all the way to the bottom, and usually what I want to look at is a couple things. P-val, which is like, I don't know, I think it stands for pitch value. It takes a bunch of things into account, but actually, why don't we see what it takes into account, because I don't want to spew fake news. I think it's like run states and stuff like that. So it's constantly like measuring changes in run expectancy for pitchers. So it is not predictive, but it is extremely descriptive. Did I just get rid of? No, I didn't. I just need to go back to Gausman's page. And so you like, it's a pretty easy way to be like, oh, his splitter has been super, super good for him. His fastball's been pretty good. His slider has sucked. His curveball has sucked. And his changeup has also sucked. So that's a very just, I guess, inexact way of being like, what pitchers are good. And obviously, the greater the sample size, the more meaningful it is. Um, but another thing that I'll look at, and I have to scroll up, is O swing. So what percentage? Oh, it says right here, percentage of pitches a batter swings at outside the zone. So what percentage of pitches are batters chasing on the given pitch? Um, Zone swing matters too, because if you combine the two and you find pitchers with high O swings and low Z swings, that means that they're getting hitters to take strikes and swing at balls, which obviously is a good thing. So, like I said earlier, my frame of reference for a good chase rate on most breaking pitches is like over 40%. And here you can see Gausman has a 42% O swing on a splitter. 25% on a fastball might look bad, but it's not. It's quite good for a fastball. And also, I'm going to pull up another pitcher to kind of compare against. And I am all but forced to do Paul Sewald. Let's see. Zone percentage is super important because as a pitcher, you have to be able to throw pitches in the zone. It's just like you just have to. Otherwise, pitchers will just, or batters will stop swinging. 30% is quite low. For a changeup or splitter, it's really not. But he makes up for this by throwing his fastball in the zone a ton. Like, I actually kind of imagine, and I am looking at, yeah, like, wow, 70% is crazy high. I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, I kind of imagine that he is probably one of the highest in terms of zone percentage. So he throws his fastball in the zone a lot and throws his splitter in the zone not a lot. I used to really use this as a kind of my framework for what a good pitch is. A 9% swinging strike rate on a fastball is good. A 24% swinging strike rate on a splitter is really good. If we were just looking at swinging strike rate, we would be led to believe that his slider and changeup are good pitches, which they're not. The way that I know that they're not great pitches is both of them have really poor chase rates. And if hitters aren't chasing them, that means that he has to throw them in the zone. And then you can kind of look at like Z contact and see how much do they make contact in the zone. And actually, it's not great for hitters. So it's really it's kind of a puzzle. It's taking all this information and piecing it together and figuring out like what is, like, is this a good pitch? And I suppose one thing that I'll say is that to replace swinging strike percentage, and by the way, I was going to look at Paul Sewald's. I would use CSW or strike percentage, and I'll do a couple queries for those on Baseball Savant, and then we'll get out of here. So the reason why I wanted to look at Sewald is that I said like a good pitch will have an O swing over 40%. Like Jarrett Seidler has called Paul Sewald's slider an 80 grade pitch, and it has a 30% chase rate, which isn't that great for a slider, but it is a good pitch. So like Paul Sewald, even better chase rate on his fastball, which chase rate doesn't always matter super much on fastballs, but That's really good, and you can see that it jumped quite a bit from previous years. Um, a 16% swinging strike rate, like, unless you have, I don't want to say a specific player's name, but unless you have poor command, this is going to result in a good CSW or strike percentage. And then he gets a ton of whiffs on his slider, and you can see guys don't make contact. Like 58% is pretty low. So Seawald throws his fastball in the zone a ton, and he also throws his slider in the zone a fair amount. So let's see. I did this last stream, and my stream's starting to run a little slow on me. I'm gonna delete some tabs. But I want to do strike percentage and CSW because, well, just because. And I'm also going to eat a Scandinavian swimmer, which is like Swedish fish. I hope you don't hear me eating it. Okay. So we want to look at on the whole. And then, what did I want to look at? Oh, yeah. So, and I'll finish with talking about like the biases within each. Okay, that's good. Both the query and the Scandinavian swimmer. Okay. Who can I pick out of the crowd? Maybe Alcantara. Did I run this right? Yeah, I think so. So yeah, Sandy is very bad when it comes to swinging call strikes with whiffs. But one of the things that it doesn't account for is foul balls, which some guys can actually do like pretty sustainably. I think a good example, I was actually just talking with John Troopin about this the other day, but Logan Gilbert is actually a really good example of someone who looks really not great by CSW. Let me pull up what that is. But when you include foul balls, which foul balls are strikes if it's not in a 2-strike count. Let's see. So 81 out of, oh, that's actually not the worst, but I want to raise this because that's not very high. Let's do 500. These streams are like so much the way my brain works. Like I don't come in with any plan. Okay, 57 out of 113. So like Logan Gilbert's pretty average when it comes to throwing strikes when you only consider called strikes and whiffs. But when you consider foul balls, he's the 12th best out of, I think, the same number. So like he's in like the 90th percentile. Like with Max Scherzer and Tyler Mahle and Lance Lynn and hey, Gausman, what's up, boy? Yeah. So there's that, and then the strike percentage that people have historically used, because it's not a new stat. CSW is essentially just a more specific version of strike percentage. They include balls in play, which is a little weird, but they do. So this is another way to look at, at guys who throw strikes. As I talked about earlier, Gausman he throws in the zone a lot. I think this is pretty good actually for a guy who has a splitter that can go, you know, that he can kind of lose the command of. Um, this is a really good thing. So him and Gilbert are up here, whereas um, CSW is a little biased because it doesn't like the way that they go about it. Um, let's see. I wanted to do one more thing. I know I've said that like 5 times. What did I want to do? Oh, I wanted to look at. Shouts out to Alexander Chase. Uh, Another way in which CSW is biased is that it's biased against guys who. So ignore this. Don't think of this as a as a percentage. Think of it as I think 1.79. Yeah, that sounds right. No. No. I want to look at CSW per plate appearance. I guess it doesn't really matter. Weird. Yeah. Okay. Um, because CSW is biased against guys who I'm trying to think. So the deeper you get into a count, the the more strikes you have even, uh, the the harder it is to throw more strikes. So CSW actually penalizes guys who get deeper into counts, even if they're throwing strikes, because it gets harder to throw more. So CSW per plate appearance kind of takes away that penalty. And it looks at like in any given plate appearance, how many strikes are guys throwing, and it's still not perfect, but it's different. Wow, Kikuchi, look at you. Let's see, Gilbert. That's what I was gonna do. So Gilbert is pretty average here. Uh, who's the other guy? Oh, Gausman. And Gausman's also not the best. So they're both, I think, guys that cause a lot of foul balls, but Gausman's a little. Gausman's fastball plays well upstairs. Gilbert's is like not as good as it should have been. I'm gonna go grab something real quick. Y'all know what motherfucking time it is. If I see any viewers leave, I'm gonna cry. That means it's closing time. So again, I hope in the future to have more of an outline of like things to do. Wow, I ended that 1 hour like perfectly again. This is wild. Um, yeah, I keep asking people like what would be helpful because this is for you. It's not just for me to sit in a stream with now 2 viewers up to like 7 or something like that. Uh, I'm trying to make all of this more accessible, and if I don't get feedback and like get people to tell me like, hey motherfucker, you're being way too complex about all this, or hey dude, I want to learn about this thing, then I can't go over it. So it would be super lovely if you could send me some feedback, or DM me and just be like, yo, I want to learn about this, because we're here to learn. So it is closing time, and I will see you next time.